Hey everybody, good morning. It's First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich with your update on Michael and just bad news for the Florida Panhandle. There's no easy way to put it. This is going to be a devastating hurricane for the Florida Panhandle. I'll get right to the satellite imagery because it really tells the story. Overnight, really in the last 24 hours, the storm has gone through what we call rapid intensification. It is intensified very quickly in a 12 to 24 hour period. The pressure continues to fall, which is a sign of a strengthening storm. The structure of the storm is about as scary looking as it gets. And this is a worst case scenario because it's happening prior to landfall. Sometimes storms get very strong and then they start to weaken as they get closer to the coast, which can lower the winds and allow the surge maybe to level off. In this case, the surge is always going to be a problem regardless in this location of Florida, but this is just ramping up the surge and the winds in particular. You're talking tornado-like winds are going to be possible in probably a 50-mile corridor as the eye wall passes over. If you look carefully, you can see just how well defined that eye wall is. I mean, it's about as clear cut as it gets. Pressure continues to fall. In fact, looking at the Hurricane Hunter aircraft, which is crisscrossing the storm right now, there's probably a pretty good chance it could continue to intensify because the water in the Gulf of Mexico, remember, we haven't had any autumn cold fronts yet make it down to this part of the country. So it's been incredibly hot and humid, and the water is off the charts warm for this time of year. So there's plenty of fuel. The only thing that will deter strengthening now is just interaction with land, and it's running out of time for that to happen. So unfortunately, this will be one of the worst storms to ever hit the state of Florida, let alone the Panhandle by far. There's very few storms that have hit the state this strong. All of them have been devastating. So let's get into some of what's going on right now because the water levels down towards Apalachicola are rising. You can see the gauge here. This is the tide gauge already, and the storm is still probably about 5-6 hours from landfall. You're already getting close to some of the highest water levels they've ever seen. This could be way up into the major category. So huge storm surge down there. Folks, if you're watching this or have any chance to get further inland, your time's kind of out, but please, if you have to, get inland as far as you can and then hunker down for these strong winds, which will be devastating. Let's go right to the radar, and I'll kind of show you the track of this. Now, the next question I'm going to get is, what does this mean for the Carolinas? Now, you can see where the center is right now. The track actually forecast has been incredible, and it's actually working out pretty well. You can see the center is going to, basically Panama City is going to be exactly where this goes, and then it moves inland into southern Georgia. Now, this area basically up into southern Georgia until about 2 o'clock in the morning. It should be somewhere in here. This will be devastating wind damage in here. Now, it will weaken to a Category 1 storm by that time. It'll weaken to a tropical storm as it moves into the Carolinas. So by 8 a.m. tomorrow, it should be somewhere around Columbia or Augusta as a tropical storm, 45-mile-an-hour winds. And then it's going to be off the coast in 12 hours. So it is flying. The forward speed is not changing. In fact, it's going to be out here by 2 a.m. on Friday morning. So it's going to go from here to here in basically about 48 hours. It'll be off the coast and long gone. Now, the concern I have is today, you can see we've got pockets of heavy rain moving across the Carolinas. Now, this batch of rain is not directly associated with Matthew, but it is producing pockets of 1 to 2 inches of rain today before the main batch of Matthew gets up here. So you can see this first batch can kind of prime the ground, make everything saturated. So as the next batch of rain gets up here, we could end up with a tremendous amount of rainfall in a very short period of time as it moves over us on Thursday. So the rain today actually could be more of a problem overall. Then you've got this cold front. You can see the cold front back to the west. This cold front is going to squeeze some of the moisture out of the system. So as it moves in this direction, the front is moving in with it to push it out. We might see some enhancement of rain on the northwest side. So those are a couple things to keep an eye on as the system gets closer to us tomorrow. So let's get into the forecast part of this. This is the short range models that we use in this case. And again, we'll update this probably every 6 hours or so as we get more data. But you can see the progress of the system moving into the Panhandle right on schedule, right within the cone. Now, this model is a little bit west of the center, but it's pretty much the same. And look at the timing. This is 2-3 o'clock in the morning. The storm is much weaker. You can see losing some of its characteristics here by 6, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. So this is 7:15 in the morning. You notice the heavy rain developing across Charlotte. So this is a 12-hour window of heavy rain starting probably 6, 7, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning and then lasting through the day with the worst weather likely right here in the middle of the day, right around noon. And you can see some heavy rain even off to the northwest. This is where the front gets in. I think this is where we'll see the enhancement of the rain on the northwest side. So this is at 12:52 tomorrow afternoon. This is at 2 p.m. This is at 3 p.m. This is at 4:20. And this is at 5:20. So notice that the whole system is starting to move out very quickly. So by the time we get to 7 p.m., the worst of the weather is moving off towards the Raleigh area, then moving off to the east. So by 8, 9, 10 o'clock, here you go. The storm is exiting the coast and is long gone by 2 o'clock in the morning. And by the time you wake up Friday morning, there is nothing left over. So you can see that is a very fast moving system. I'll back it up again. So there's a 12-hour window of really nasty weather on Thursday, and then it's done. I'll move this and notice the time up here in the corner. You can see the movement off to the northeast very quickly. So the timing hasn't changed at all. This system is not slowing down. A lot of people ask me, is this system it's not slowing down. If anything, it's moving as fast or faster than we've expected. The only thing that's changed is the intensity of the storm. Remember, when we get track updates, the timing changes where the plots are because every 6 hours, it's just pushed forward 6 hours. So I think people kind of get messed up when they see that updated track and think, oh, it's changed. And it's really just 6 hours later. It's just an advancement into the future. So you can see it moves in and out quickly. So what are we talking about as far as rainfall totals? Well, let me show you this real quickly. This is the updated forecast. Now, these are 2-day rainfall totals. 3 to 5 inches is a pretty good bet across our area, but this includes today's rain and tomorrow's rain. So let me make this just a hair bigger so you guys can see it. If you look carefully here, you can see across Charlotte, this is 3 inches in the northern part to around 5.5 inches to the south with really heavy rain out here. Now, the axis of this heavy rain could change depending on subtle differences where the band and that front interact. That front interacting will be a big part of this. To see how much rain we get on the northwest side. Now, as far as winds are concerned, I don't think this is going to be a big wind event. I don't want to downplay the fact that there's going to be wind, but the maximum gust could be 35, maybe 40 miles an hour. Sustained is only 20 to 30. So normally this is not a big deal, especially only lasting 6 to 8 hours. This is really just like a quick burst of wind and it's done. But obviously the combination of that heavy rain and the wind together will bring down some trees and some power lines. So that's certainly a possibility. I don't want to discount that, but this is not going to be structural damage to your house because of shingles being ripped off, roofs ripped off, mobile homes. This is about trees coming down again. Anytime around here we get the soil wet and you throw in winds, you end up with some issues with these trees coming down, and then they always take down a power line or two. But remember too, Florence was a bad thing to have, but Florence actually cleared out a lot of dead wood. So if there's one thing working in our favor, all the weakened trees were taken out by Florence, but there also could have been some trees that were weakened by Florence that didn't quite come down that could come down with this system. So just a couple things to keep in mind. If you had trees that were leaning or damaged in Florence, hopefully you took care of them because this is the type of wind that could bring down those damaged trees from Florence. But most of the trees that were going to come down in a 30, 40 mile an hour wind with 3 days of rain probably did in Florence. But you always worry about weakened trees from a previous storm. Now, the good news, the steering currents are straightforward. We talked about, the surprise has been the intensity, how quickly it's ramped up. But the steering has been so straightforward. That's why you see such a narrow cone and really no deviation in the forecast track. In fact, it's really clear. You can see the mega trough digging in the middle of the country. That's our autumn cold front. So this thing is going to go northeast. The question is, how far east does this get before landfall? And could that even shift the track further to our south and east? I think I showed you the model where it showed it a little bit closer to us, which was just a hair. Overall, it doesn't change impacts. But what I'm curious is to see, where does this low go? The center go? Does it go a little bit east over time? If you look carefully, it looks like we're actually starting to see, I'm going to turn the lat long lines on because this really helps you see whether it's going northeast. And it is moving about 10 degrees due northeast. So, straight north is 0 degrees or 360. 5 to 10 degrees is just a little bit northeast. So if you look carefully, I'll put the cursor right there. It's definitely got a northeast component to it, which means it's going to put it at Panama City, later today. And let me turn that back on. I'm actually going to turn the model data off here for a second, and we'll turn the radar data back on just to kind of show you. So if you look at the track here, there's Panama City. Now this is interesting because, you know, where it's tracking now, it might actually be just east of Panama City. So this general area, but even the track, it looks like it might be trending to the east just a little bit. I'm going to loop this just to see a couple times here. So you can clearly see if I zoom in on the radar that it's moving a little bit north. So just a couple things to keep an eye on as we get closer to this storm heading our way tomorrow. That could have an impact down the road. But you can clearly see it's straightforward what's going on. High pressure here is moving away in this direction. So the flow around it is causing it to go northeast because the winds are going there. But then you got this big front and trough coming in this way. So this thing has to go this direction, and it's going to go fast because the winds here, this is the jet stream. So once it gets caught in those winds, it'll be racing off to the northeast really quickly. So let's go back one more time. Please think about the people in the panhandle of Florida. This is going to be a devastating storm for them. For us, it's going to be an ugly, ugly Thursday. You're looking at just a really nasty day all around on Thursday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., kind of that 12-hour window where we're going to have really rough weather, rain and wind, but it's in and out quickly. Tomorrow night, we actually could see clear skies and temperatures in the 50s for overnight lows. Couple things to pass along. We do have a couple advisories that I want to show you real quickly. I'm going to turn, wrong one. I'm going to turn this graphic on for a second here. Let me stop this. I'm going to turn on all our graphics here just to show you real quickly all the advisories we have in effect. So I'm going to remove the radar here for a second and actually going to take out the tropical data just for a second so you don't get all caught up in that. So we'll plot some of the advisories. We've got a flash flood watch up for pretty much the entire area. That flash flood watch is in effect until midnight tomorrow, and we've got tropical storm watches and advisories for counties down in here. Now, if you saw your phone go off today, the reason we saw that was mainly because we do expect some tropical storm force winds to our southeast, which are 39 miles an hour. I guess my data isn't going to turn on. But just so you know, it doesn't mean you're going to see a hurricane. It just means tropical storm force winds with wind and rain in this area. So I'll be tracking it throughout the day. There we go. Just plotted real quickly. Let me turn it off real quickly, and I'll show you just to give you a heads up. So the green is the flood watch. The tropical storm watch are kind of the darker red, and then you see the tropical storm warning down here. So that kind of shows you all the warnings and advisories in effect, and it just kind of lines up with the track. If you think the track is coming right through here, I'll turn it back on. Best track, put forecast cone on. You can see it moving right there. So that lines up almost perfectly with the track. Of course, updates coming out throughout the day. Stay tuned to Facebook and Twitter, and we'll keep you up to date on this storm. Have a great day, everybody.